So good, you're doing so good.
I just want to say, everyone will suffer. Do you remember worried?
An after party tonight?
The FBI just dropped some bombshell revelations, and Diddy and Ashton Kutcher's names are right in the mix. According to the latest reports, the two allegedly manipulated actress Daveigh Chase, yes, Samara from The Ring, into shady behind-the-scenes dealings for their secret freak-off parties. The details are wild, the connections are messy, and trust me, y'all aren't ready for what's coming next. Here's the backstory. Daveigh Chase, born July 24, 1990, in Las Vegas, seemed destined for the spotlight. She grew up in Oregon, and, even as a kid, it was clear she had that performer vibe. By the age of 7, Daveigh was already out here auditioning, fueled by her parents' support and her natural drive. She kicked things off with commercials and local theater gigs, but little did she know her big break was just around the corner. Once she started auditioning in LA, it was game on. From small-town talent to Hollywood buzz, Daveigh was on a fast track, but now, these shocking allegations are changing everything.
What are we gonna do?
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 The FBI just dropped some bombshell revelations, and Diddy and Ashton Kutcher's names are right in the mix. According to the latest reports, the two allegedly manipulated actress Daveigh Chase, yes, Samara from The Ring, into shady behind-the-scenes dealings for their secret freak-off parties. The details are wild, the connections are messy, and trust me, y'all aren't ready for what's coming next. Here's the backstory. Daveigh Chase, born July 24, 1990, in Las Vegas, seemed destined for the spotlight. She grew up in Oregon, and, even as a kid, it was clear she had that performer vibe. By the age of 7, Daveigh was already out here auditioning, fueled by her parents' support and her natural drive. Things popped off quickly for her. She started doing voice acting for animated cartoons, and here's the kicker, she's the voice of Lilo from Lilo and Stitch. Back in the day, that was a huge deal. Honestly, if social media existed like it does now, her name would probably still be buzzing today. But Daveigh's career didn't stop with animation. This girl had range. She popped up in TV classics like Charmed and ER, proving she could hold her own in live action, too. Her real big screen moment came in 2001 when she starred in Donnie Darko as Samantha Darko. That movie is a cult classic, and her role put her on the map. She even returned to reprise the role in the 2009 sequel. But before we get into that, we have to talk about her game-changing role in 2002, The Ring. At just 12 years old, her performance as Samara was straight-up haunting. She became an icon in horror cinema overnight. It's impossible to think about scary movies from that era and not picture Samara. Even though she was young, her talent had everyone talking, and little me hiding under the covers. Over the years, Daveigh kept switching it up, diving into all kinds of roles. She even dabbled in music for a bit. It was giving Hollywood a powerhouse in the making. In 2009, she revisited her Donnie Darko role, but after that, things got quiet for a while. She didn't resurface until 2016 with American Romance, a low-budget thriller about a serial killer. Critics, though, weren't feeling it. They called it dull and just plain gross. Sadly, American Romance ended up being Daveigh's last major leading role, and since then, her acting career seems to have hit pause. That's led people to wonder if she quietly stepped away from Hollywood altogether. Honestly, making it as far as she did after starting as a child star is already a huge win. Most don't even get that far. But now, Daveigh's name is back in the spotlight after all these years, and not for the best reasons. It's all tied to the messy Diddy and Ashton Kutcher head. There's this old video that's been resurfacing from the 2003 MTV Music Awards, and it's raising eyebrows. In the clip, Diddy is seen inviting a 13-year-old Daveigh to an after-party. Yes, that kind of party. And let's be real, the words Diddy and party in the same sentence these days automatically bring up images of freak-offs. In the clip, Diddy approaches Daveigh after she wins Best Villain for her role in The Ring and casually asks if she wants to hit up an after-party. At first glance, it might seem harmless, like he was just being playful. But now, knowing what we know about the allegations against Diddy, including the horrifying lawsuit claiming he assaulted a 13-year-old girl just 3 years before that event, it's a whole different story. If Daveigh did go to that party, what on earth could have gone down? It's beyond concerning, and the whole situation feels incredibly dark. Now that Diddy's lawsuits are piling up, this old video hits differently. Social media is buzzing, and people are straight up disgusted, calling the interaction sick and gross. Like, why is a grown man hyped about inviting a literal child to an after-party? The whole vibe is weird. One person commented, WTF, who asks a 13-year-old to an after-party? Plus, Ashton Kutcher isn't getting off easy in this situation either. People have always felt like Ashton had weird vibes, the clean-cut guy with a possible dark side. Like, psychotype behavior under the surface. He's been catching heat, too, especially after another video resurfaced where he hyped up Diddy's parties, calling them the best of his life, while being cryptic about what went down. And let's not forget guests allegedly had to sign NDAs banning them from talking until 20 years after Diddy died. Like, what could be happening at those parties that require that level of secrecy? Ashton's messy history isn't helping his case, either. People are bringing up that time when he was 19 and kissed a 14-year-old Mila Kunis on set because Danny Masterson bet him $20. Not only is that creepy, but it's also deeply inappropriate. And let's not even get into that old clip of Ashton talking about Hilary Duff and the Olsen twins turning 18, which gave everyone the ick. Back to the Daveigh Chase situation, though, it's got people revisiting the culture of Hollywood parties and how young stars were treated back in the day. Influencer and celebrity-adjacent events are shady enough now, but things were even worse then. We've all seen parties where minors show up with their parents, and the whole vibe feels off. Like, why are teenage kids even there? Sure, the mom might be standing in the corner sipping a drink, but it still feels weird. And that's with a chaperone. Now imagine a Hollywood party where some moms are off mingling with grown adults, leaving their teenage kids to fend for themselves. That's the kind of vibe this Diddy video gives. It's wild to think this situation played out in front of the entire world, on national TV, and nobody batted an eye back then. But knowing what allegedly went on at Diddy's after-parties makes it so much worse. People have every right to feel outraged, especially considering how young and vulnerable Daveigh was at the time. It's dark, it's unsettling, and it's bringing up larger conversations about the exploitation of child stars in Hollywood. Diddy's messy reputation isn't new, but this clip just adds to the pile of disturbing allegations against him. And Ashton? He's not escaping public scrutiny either. People are saying it loud. If Diddy is under investigation, Ashton should be too. His connection to Diddy's parties and his problematic behavior over the years are catching up to him. Ashton has built a public image as a likable, goofy guy, but the cracks in that image are starting to show. For Daveigh Chase, though, it's hard not to feel for her. She was such a talented actress with an impressive lineup of roles. People are now hoping she was protected from whatever could have gone down that night. She's kept quiet about this resurfaced video and her experiences with Diddy, but the creepy nature of that invite, and everything we now know, has people on edge. This entire situation highlights how Hollywood's culture has enabled these shady dynamics for decades. Parties with young stars were normalized, and the industry often turned a blind eye. But now, the public is revisiting these old moments and calling them out for what they are: deeply disturbing. Whether or not we ever get the full truth about what happened, one thing's for sure: this story isn't going away anytime soon.
Joff is in Lizzie McGuire. She also has an album out. She's going to be in a movie called Cheaper by the Dozen. And she's one of the girls that we're all waiting for to turn 18, along with the Olsen twins. Any 15-year-old end up getting
Hilary Duff. Fast forward to now, and Ashton Kutcher's name is being dragged into this resurfaced story about Diddy inviting a 12-year-old Daveigh Chase to his parties. Like, what even is this connection? But let's switch gears for a minute because Daveigh's own story is just as wild and, honestly, just as heartbreaking. Things took a turn for Daveigh after her career started slowing down. By 2016, her big-screen appearances had dwindled, and she starred in American Romance, a low-budget thriller that flopped hard. Critics panned the movie, calling it dull and unwatchable, and it marked the beginning of a downward spiral for her. By 2017, Daveigh's life started unraveling in a very public way. In August of that year, Daveigh was arrested for drug possession, which hinted at deeper struggles she was facing behind the scenes. Then, just a few months later in November, things got even darker. She was questioned by police about a man's death, which understandably raised a lot of eyebrows. Though she wasn't charged in connection with his death, she ended up being arrested for an unrelated warrant. It was a messy, chaotic time that only seemed to get worse. And let's talk about the joyriding situation because apparently that's still a thing. Daveigh got slapped with a felony charge for taking someone's car without permission. Like, girl, what is going on? Unfortunately, things didn't stop there. In 2018, she kept racking up charges, including possession and failing to appear in court. That, of course, led to more warrants being issued for her arrest. It was like a chain reaction of legal troubles, and it's honestly so sad to see how far she's fallen. From being a child star in major Hollywood movies to this kind of spiral, it makes you wonder, what was going on behind the scenes all these years? Daveigh Chase's story is such a complicated, heartbreaking one, and it's clear that her struggles are heavily tied to addiction. Honestly, this girl needed rehab and support, not jail time. But Hollywood has a long history of chewing young stars up and spitting them out, and Daveigh's story feels like just another example of that brutal cycle. Since all of this went down, Daveigh has pretty much disappeared from the public eye. No red carpets, no paparazzi photos, no interviews. Her social media has been completely silent since 2017, like she just vanished into thin air. It's eerie, and it's hard not to feel concerned for her. No one knows where she is or how she's doing, and that in itself speaks volumes. This entire situation highlights how dangerous fame can be for young stars, especially those working in Hollywood. The industry doesn't exactly have a great track record when it comes to protecting kids. Daveigh was working nonstop as a child, jumping from one big project to the next. But when the roles dried up, real life seemed to hit her hard. One minute you're famous, the next you're forgotten. It's a brutal cycle. And for someone like Daveigh, who spent her formative years on sets instead of in school or developing normal friendships, the adjustment to adulthood must have been incredibly tough. It's like these kids never get the chance to figure out who they are outside of their roles. When the fame stops, they're left to deal with life without the tools they need to cope. To make things even murkier, someone reached out on Instagram recently, claiming they were friends with Daveigh and that they had all this inside tea about what's been going on with her. They hinted at juicy details and promised to spill, but then? Nothing. Crickets. It's like nobody knows the full story, and those who do aren't talking. The most recent clip we've seen of Daveigh is honestly heartbreaking. She didn't want to be filmed, and you can tell she wasn't in a great place. People need to respect boundaries, especially when someone is struggling. Seeing her like that was such a harsh reminder of how far things have spiraled for her. Her story raises so many questions. Was Daveigh so consumed by the demands of being a child star that she never got the chance to grow up? Did the relentless pressure of Hollywood contribute to her struggles with addiction? And most importantly, did she have anyone protecting her during those vulnerable years? These are questions we may never get answers to. But one thing's for sure, Daveigh's story is a cautionary tale about the dark side of fame. If Daveigh ever wanted to tell her side of what happened, it would be so powerful. Can you imagine the insight she'd bring? From her breakout roles as a child to her struggles with addiction and legal issues, she's been through so much. Hopefully, wherever she is now, she's okay. And maybe one day, when she's ready, she'll share her truth. Meanwhile, Diddy and Ashton Kutcher are facing their storms of controversy. Both of their names are being dragged into this resurfaced story, but let's be real, Diddy's situation is on a whole other level. Ashton is catching backlash for his past comments and actions, like that cringy old interview where he praised Diddy's infamous parties, calling them the best of his life, while staying cryptic about what went down. But compared to what's unfolding around Diddy, Ashton's controversies look like small potatoes. Diddy, on the other hand, is buried under a mountain of lawsuits and allegations that paint an extremely dark picture. From accusations of abuse and exploitation to claims about his infamous parties, where NDAs were reportedly so strict they locked down secrets tighter than Fort Knox, Diddy's reputation is unraveling fast. The sheer number of lawsuits, combined with the severity of the claims, makes it clear that he's not just facing a PR nightmare. This is a full-on legal storm that could derail his entire legacy. If these allegations hold any weight, we're talking about serious consequences for Diddy, not just for his career, but potentially for his freedom, too. People are already asking the big question, could Diddy end up behind bars for life? And then there's the lingering question about Daveigh Chase. Was she really at one of those infamous freak-off parties back in the day? If so, what on earth could have gone down? It's a lot to unpack, and people online are already buzzing about it. Let us know what you think in the comments. Is Diddy finally facing the consequences of his actions? And where do you think Daveigh Chase is now? Before you go, be sure to check out this next video for more updates on this developing story.